gameranx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight up gameplay and some first impressions of the latest games releasing. I'm Andrew Gebbia, and today we're talking about Showdown. Some of you have probably heard of this before, some of you have probably already played it because it's been in early access for about a year now and is just now hitting 1.0, so we wanted to take a look at it. To be honest, I didn't play much of it in early access. I fell off of it real quick. It just didn't hook me, so this isn't really going to be comparing the final product to its early access days, but more of a roundup of the game that we have now. Showdown is the newest shooter from Crytek, the team behind Crysis and the OG Far Cry games. It's actually a pretty interesting concept and isn't your average shooter. You're tossed into a big swamp-like area and you, the hunter, are tasked with hunting down and killing these big, ugly demon monsters, all while fighting off other smaller enemies, managing your ammo and supplies, and facing off against other players. Obviously, it's way more drawn out than that, but the overall gameplay loop here is actually a lot of fun when you're on a high. The game has some real lows, but man, when you're in an intense firefight with another player or fighting a boss, it can be a blast. So what a round of Hunt actually consists of is this. You drop onto the map with a different spawn point each time. From there, you use your dark sight to start looking for clues. Dark sight being this ability that you have where it makes the entire screen go dark, but you're looking for these blue clouds that are the clues. You have to find 3 of these clues to tell where your bounty is. Some rounds have 1 bounty while others have multiples, but each bounty has 3 sets of clues, and each bounty is also a boss. Clues will show up as these blue clouds that are off in the distance, and then you set off to find them. Each time you find one, it grays out a part of the map telling you that your bounty isn't in that specific part of the map. After you find 3 clues, the location of the bounty is revealed to you, and then you head there to fight it. These boss battles could be against the Butcher, Assassin, or Spider. Each boss looking drastically different, but they don't feel that different. Yeah, the Butcher is way slower than the Spider, but overall what you're doing is running around a cramped space, taking shots on the boss when you can. Yeah, they have different weak spots, they can burn or poison you or cloud up your screen with bugs, but overall, there aren't any true mechanics to each boss, at least none that I could tell. Before I get yelled at though, yes, you do have to do things a little differently with each one. For example, shotguns work really well against a Butcher, and rifles not so much. He does have an AoE attack that the Spider and Assassin doesn't, and he does take one last swing with his meat hook before he dies that can really mess you up if he catches you. But I just think having more mechanics to each fight is something that the game can really benefit from. Seeing that there's only 3 right now, I just like to see each boss fight be drastically different, but that's just me. The map also seems really empty, and there also aren't any real memorable landmarks. The only loot you'll find out in the world is ammo, health kits, and melee weapons, so there really isn't any real incentive to go looting and explore the map. There isn't much at all to do in between fighting clues and taking on the boss, besides trying to not die. Killing off smaller enemies nets you more XP, yeah, but if you really wanted to sneak your way through the whole round collecting clues and then taking on the boss, you can. You can totally ignore them. I just wish there was a little bit more to do, maybe more loot, maybe a side objective or 2 that isn't a daily challenge. I just feel like there's some room to do some really cool stuff here. Anyway, so after you defeat the boss, you have to banish it, which does take some time. And after the boss is banished, it drops bounty tokens, which you need to pick up and then extract to get credit for the kill. When you're banishing it, the game informs other players that the boss is being banished, and it also tells them where the boss is being banished. So at this point, other players can run up on you, kill you, and take the bounty token for themselves, essentially making you do all the hard work in killing the boss, and they can just stroll on in and reap the benefits. And I gotta say, killing the boss and then getting killed by another player and having your shit stolen is super defeating. It sucks so much. But after banishing and collecting the bounty token, you have to make it to an extraction point, which isn't always close. Sometimes you're traveling very far across the map. So you now have to make it across the map with this token and extract it, all while most likely being hunted by other players who can still kill you and steal your bounty. And then when you get to the extraction point, you have to wait another 20 seconds or so before you're actually extracted and you're safe. Yeah, I know, that sounds like a lot, and it's super stressful, which the game is really good at doing. Stressing you out, I mean. Firing off your gun alone is stressful. There are smaller enemies on the map that you're gonna have to fight, and if you use your gun while another player is nearby, they can hear those shots and come kill you. So even the simple act of firing your weapon can ultimately lead to your death. Every move you make here has to be somewhat calculated. And teamwork is key. You can solo queue, but it's really something that I don't recommend. Doing all this alone really makes it more difficult than it has to be. Having someone to watch your back, having someone to revive you, and even just having someone there to help take on bosses is super important. I really do not like playing with randoms in any game, but during my time with Hunt, I found myself playing with randoms the whole time because it just didn't make sense to me to add to the already pretty difficult difficulty. Speaking of feeling stressful, I want to explore that more. Hunt hits you with an actual sense of fear and worry. You never know what's going to be around the corner waiting for you. It could be a zombie that's easy enough to pick off, a player who might be a crack shot, or that fire zombie thing that will explode into a wall of flames if you deal any damage to it. There is a lot of shit here trying to kill you, and the game really wants you dead, and it really wants you to know it. As you're wandering around the map, everything that wants to kill you is making some sort of creepy sound, which is even more creepy at night, and these sounds really keep you on edge. Sound is actually very important here. You need to really listen to your surroundings, and you also want to make as little noise as possible. You could walk by a flock of crows and scare them off, and that can give away your position to another nearby player. Same goes for walking by a dog kennel, walking on glass, walking near and spooking a horse, stepping on a twig, or even running through water. All of those sounds are things that can get you killed, but they can also help you hunt down other players. Hunkering down in a boss room and waiting for the banishment to end is going to have you relying heavily on sound, listening for footsteps, a cracking twig, broken glass, any sign that's going to help you pinpoint exactly where that other player is and where they're coming from. So instead of them getting the drop on you, you can get the drop on them. Hunt does have some great sound design, and playing with headphones I think is something you're definitely going to want to do, as it's going to give you an advantage for sure. Obviously, not dying is important in any game, but here it's even more important because it kind of has a permadeath element. So you don't have one hunter that you play as and level up over time. You actually have multiple hunters, because if that hunter dies, you lose them, their progress, their skills, and all of their gear. So after losing one, you have to hire another one, which costs more money. And each hunter comes with his or her own set of gear, sometimes coming with a weapon you don't own yet, which is actually pretty cool. But if there's a certain loadout that you like losing and your previous hunter died using said loadout, you're gonna have to repurchase all of it. Money isn't in short supply, you're earning more than enough, but you know, some money here, some money there, all those costs add up. So dying is something you're gonna wanna avoid, because every time you do, you lose money, gear, and any time you had invested into that particular hunter. There's also a ton of gear to unlock. Most of it being unlocked from you just playing the game, but then there are variant weapons that you can unlock by playing more with the base weapons. These variants have scopes, silencers, or they can have an axe, brass knuckles, or any other melee weapon attached to them, making the melee attack way more powerful. But there are a ton of weapons to work towards, and I genuinely want to grind to unlock them. There are already a few weapons that I really have my eye on that I'm gonna work specifically towards unlocking those. Just like Jake, I'm really into character progression, and Hunt does a very good job at keeping it interesting because you don't have just one character. And the idea of being knocked back a bit when you lose your hunter adds a really welcome risk-reward element, which is something I'm used to being applied to just the gameplay and not my character progression to this extent. The game also starts you out in training mode, where for your first few levels when you die, you don't lose your hunter or gear. And when I exited training mode and lost a hunter for the first time, I was pissed. Losing the hunter, his skills, all the gear was a huge bummer and disappointment. But all it really did was make me want to jump right back in with a new hunter and make up for all of that progress. So I'd say that the progression system definitely does its job and definitely keeps me playing. Overall though, Hunt Showdown is a really fun experience. I don't think it's something that I'm gonna dump, like serious time into the way you would with other multiplayer games, but it's definitely something I see myself jumping into from time to time. Definitely something I'd spend a whole weekend playing for sure. While it's fun, I can see it getting a little old, and I don't know how differently other weapons control and how much more that will add. Control-wise, Hunt's gunplay is fine, and not a bad fine. It's there, it works, it gets the job done, but it's not the thing that's gonna really keep you playing. It doesn't control like a Titanfall or a Call of Duty or any other shooter like that. I know Crytek has already released some DLC, but I really hope that in the future they release more maps and more bosses, because if they do that, I can really see this game taking off and building a really solid community. And new bosses and new maps are something that would get me to jump back in, the same way that Dead by Daylight's DLC gets me to jump back in for a weekend or two. Well, that's how Before You Buy works. We give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion thrown in, but I now want to hear from all of you. Whatever it is, leave it all down in the comments below. We'll be down there talking to you, and if you have any other questions or want to yell at me, you can find me on Twitter at Andrew Gebbia. If you had fun with this video, clicking the like button really helps us out, and if you're new here, we put out videos like this every single day. As always, thanks for stopping by to hang out with us. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.